Okay, number 5.
Number 5. Injuries are pretty common during every sport activities. So, not matter what is the root of the injury and where does it come from, what things would you, for athlete, focusing on competition in CrossFit or let's say sport or fitness, how would you treat their program design if some injury occurs, and what is the best mental strategy for athletes?
So if the athlete gets injured
Mm-hmm.
and they're preparing for a competition, how do I work with that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so good question. So let's just assume the athlete is injured. We'll pick whatever, let's just say they strained their left lower QL,
Mm-hmm.
their lower back. And let's say they have competition in 3 weeks. Honestly, up to that point, they should be trained anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
They should be prepared for the competition and trained. So really in 3 weeks, they shouldn't really have, you should be able to coach them and help them understand they're not going to really lose a lot. But if they do push through it, they really can lose a lot because they can end up not competing. So it's always best in my book to take the safest route, and I would say to kind of be cautious with it, because I think the athlete will I don't know, rise to the occasion or will perform quite well as long as they go into the event being confident and feeling good. So if you can kind of take away the potential irritants, like let's just say it may be the bar on the back of their neck, maybe like the compression of a back squat, front squat may not feel really good for them, so you work around it, right? And you just manage the symptoms they have. But overall, the main thing is, I would say, is you have to take away the obvious potential irritants, but then you have to still provide them with a good stress that's going to allow them to be competitive in the competition. So let's just say the first event in the competition is Fran, and let's change it now. Instead of a back injury, they have a wrist injury, and it really hurts to do a front rack. It's like, well, simple adjustments might be to use a dumbbell for their training, right? To try to get the dose response. Or let's just say they're putting their arms over their head is not even a possibility. So then you break it down even further, and you're like, okay, so for this person, how we would assume them to perform Fran, it's going to be 2.5, 245. You're going to create a lot of oxygen debt. The last round of 9 is really going to be quite damaging aerobically for them. So what other things can we do to make that happen? And I asked them, like, where do you usually feel it? It's like, my arms are really crushed towards the end as opposed to my legs. Like, okay, well, maybe maybe using row intervals for that time frame, like 2 minutes of lactic endurance work might be an appropriate stimulus for them to try to maintain that capacity. Obviously, it's not perfect because it's not Fran and it's not going to have a 100% carryover, but it will have a good carryover. And I've heard lots of good coaches talk about, like specifically sprinting coaches. I think it was Dan Pfaff, the guy who coached, I believe he coached Donovan Bailey, or one of the Canadian sprinters. Or it might have been Charlie Francis with Ben Johnson, I can't remember. But they were saying how they did bike sprints the week before the Olympics because he had his hamstring or his hip flexor was a little sore, so he didn't want him sprinting. So he did bike sprints.
Yeah.
But he's like, we did 10-second bike sprints. He's like, it's definitely not optimal. He's like, but we got some training in it. He wouldn't want a gold medal, so it had to be something good.
Yeah.
But then, like typically for someone going into a competition, I would have a layout of their program. I would have a template is what they would follow, and it would be based on 6 weeks prior as to what I thought they needed to really do going into the competition and to build into the competition. So if an injury occurred 3 weeks out, it was minor injury, I would maintain the current template and the current focus and finish it out and plan it, because that's the best to my knowledge is what will work. If it's a more serious injury that really is going to derail part of their training and kind of takes out certain movements altogether, then like I was talking to you yesterday about, I go away from that, and it becomes much more of a play it by ear day-to-day training scenario, because we're kind of working to create as much as much adaptation and maintenance as possible in the areas without hurting them, and just slowly progress things towards where we want him to go. Slowly, slowly, slowly. But the main thing with guy or girl going to competition, if they're trying to compete, is for them to just be confident. That's the number one thing. And trying to deal with them mentally, like it'll always help just going through experience and having them experience, like have them go through it once and trust you, and then they will gain experience as to what they can do, knowing how going into the competition they're confident, even though knowing that they have an issue. If they go into it confident and they come out of it doing well and happy with what happened, that'll create really, really, really good habits and a really good mental environment for them going forward, should that happen to them, right, in another situation. And it's easier for me because I've been through injuries lots going into competitions, and I still went in and I may have won the competition or I may have placed very well, even though I had an injury, right? Like, classic example for me is after the 2012 Optathlon in San Diego, I developed patellar tendonitis quite drastically in my left knee, and that was in, I think it was September, and then October, November, December, I went to do a competition in December. I couldn't, there was a pistol event, I was supposed to do pistols, I could not physically do one. I couldn't, it felt like my knee was going to explode. And honestly, I learned quite quickly about what it means to let the injury rest and recover, because I didn't let that happen, and I pushed it too much. And I was like, all right, this has to stop, because the regionals are coming up, and I want to compete in the Open and compete in regionals for the 2013. So I couldn't do any squatting. I couldn't do back squats, because back squats hurt my knee too much. So I'm like, what can I do? Front squats weren't as bad, so I did that. But another thing that didn't hurt was deadlifting. So I got really good at deadlifting. I did. I was like, I can't do anything else, so I'll just get really good at deadlifting. I got really good at air bike sprints and air bike intervals, because that didn't hurt either. Yeah, and I really improved on my gymnastic capability because I had less to do. Like, I just didn't have the work to do with my legs. So in order for me to maintain my quad stamina and mass, I did lots of bike sprints. It's not going to be perfect, but I got maintain lots of bike sprints. And then I went through the Open, qualified for regionals, had my highest finishing at the regionals in, I don't know, a long time. I finished 5th in our region. And I was not able to do squatting or one pistol until the regional workouts were released. And that was, I had 6 weeks to slowly build myself up to compete and prepare. And I slowly did it over the course of 8 weeks. And yeah, that was the year that there was 100 pistols in one event. And I made it through. But the only reason I made it through was because I knew from prior experience that I could go into a competition. As long as I felt confident, I was going to do okay.
Yeah. Perfect. It makes sense.
Yeah. There's a lot to it though, right? That's not even discussing the actual injury or anything like that. But the overall overriding theme, just to recap it right, is to do your best with the program design, but depending on the severity, you may have to really adjust the program and work around it, and even go day by day or session by session, AM, PM, depending on how close in contact you are with them. And then, and then moving forward again, it's like, you just got to do the best you can. But like I said, if you create like one really good experience for them, that will stay with them forever.
Perfect. Thanks.